And you mentioned, your culture, person first, athlete second. And I want to dig into that a little bit. I wrote a book called Finding Intangibles. And in that book, I talked about the person and the player and kind of getting to know both and recruiting both. And I'm just curious, like when you are looking at recruiting, you said you have 7 new players on your team. As much as you focus on the person once they get in the program, how much do you focus on the person during the recruiting process?
I think you and I could walk by a softball field and both of us could pick out the best athlete. I really believe that. The way she moves, the way she throws, the way she hits, the way she pitches, the way she fields. Okay, so that part of it is easy to me. The hard part is what's inside a kid. And I think that's usually the thing that's missing when somebody recruits a kid and then maybe there's a problem. So like September 1st was the first day we could contact juniors. So every college in the country, Division I, could call, write, text, email a junior September 1st for the first time. So I'm like probably the slowest recruiter in the country. And I'm trying to explain to these kids and these families, hey, I want to get to know you before you commit to us. I'm not going to offer a kid, like I would say, Evan, hey, here's a full ride to Alabama, let's go. I would never do that because I had never gotten to know you. And it's very, very difficult. It's getting more difficult as the years go along. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure. But we try to get to know the kid first. And, obviously we want her to visit campus. And then I have probably 20 to 25 questions that I ask. And I think the thing that first drew me to you was the title of the book was the intangibles. And I think that's something that we really try to hone in on. And, I have a question that I ask every kid is, if you come to Alabama and you become a part of our family, what type of intangible would you bring to us? And I'll say first, I said, do you know what an intangible is? And some don't, some do. And then, I'll give them an example if they don't. And then I'll say, okay, so do you understand the question? And they'll say, yes, sir. And I said, okay, if you come, what type of intangible would you bring? And there's silence in the room, and which is a good thing. I learned to embrace the pause in a speaking class. Yes. Don't fill the dead air, just let her think. And a lot of times it's daughter, mom, and dad. And you look at mom and dad and they're just like sweating bullets because they want to answer for her because they know the answer. Because I usually say, mom, dad, you know everything about your daughter. I don't, but I want to know. So, and Evan, believe me, some of the answers blow you away. Just unbelievable. And I've gotten up before and I was like, that was incredible. We want you in our program. And other times, maybe not so much, but I think it's one of the best questions you can ask is, yeah, you're gonna hit, you're gonna throw, you're gonna do all those things, yes. But if you don't play, if you don't start, what are you gonna do on the bench? Because that's one of the key things. I always say, best case scenario, Evan, you'll start every game of your career. Worst case, you will not start a game. How are you going to handle that? And that's the difficult question that a lot of teams are going through, especially volleyball right now, soccer, they're just starting to get their seasons going. It's 3 weeks in, everybody's feeling good. Well, there's now the starting lineups is starting to get solidified, right? So how are you going to handle not playing? The question that I asked before the intangible one is, Evan, do you want to win or do you want to play? And again, you sit back and let them think about it, and then let's hear an answer. Because, at every program in the country, and this is across the board, 1, 2, 3 division, NAIA, junior college, whatever you're in college, you're going to practice, you're going to go to weights, you're going to run, you're going to go to school, you're going to go to study hall. All those things you are going to do, whatever program you're at, right? I don't care, Division 3 or 1. At the end of the day, do you want to win or do you want to play? Because there's a big difference. So I think sometimes it's an eye opener, for the kid. And another thing that, and you know this as well as I do, it's instant gratification nowadays. There's never like a tiny goals, tiny progress week after week after week after week. And, here's a kid that sat for 2 years and then boom, as a junior, she's an All-American. Those stories are becoming few and far between nowadays. Instead of trying to get in the starting lineup, they transfer. Or summer ball, they change teams. And it's really, really unfortunate because I think a lot of kids really do have that grit. And, I'm gonna prove something to you attitude. They just don't give it enough time. So last year we introduced this thing called the power of tiny gains, and it's just little by little by little. You keep doing what you need to be doing. And there's even this graph, and I saw it somewhere on social media. It's awesome. And, it basically shows this huge improvement if you go for 10 months, 11 months, whatever. And especially freshmen, those are the ones that are going to get better the quickest because they're going to have 16 straight weeks of intense weight and conditioning. They've never done that before in their lives. They're going to get stronger. They're going to be smarter as a player. All the things that you love, because like, let's say there's a freshman that she's hitting balls in the gap in September. Well, October, she's hitting the wall. And then November, the ball's going over the fence because everything has come together. And it's one of the coolest things to see as a coach. And I just love that part of it.
Yeah, seeing young men and women develop is one of the great gifts of being a leader and a coach. And you hit on something that is obviously huge right now in college athletics, which is how do you handle not playing? And I left college coaching in 2016, and the world is completely different now in regards to players transferring and obviously the NIL entering into the space. And I think that this is where the intangibles kind of play an even greater role. And for programs that really focus on it can be a competitive advantage, because I know from what I'm seeing from colleagues in college football, it's very difficult right now because if you're not playing almost immediately, they're leaving. And it is a very talent-based approach that people are taking to building their teams in football. And this is why you see, I think I saw a stat where like 67% of college quarterbacks changed teams last year. Right. And like, that's a pretty outstanding number. Like I can't even like wrap my head around it. So, how do you deal with players and their parents when they're sitting with you and kind of like, is there an honest communication in terms of there are no guarantees, or do you not talk about results at all in those conversations? Just kind of like talk about how you handle kind of this new aspect that is entering into the college athletic space.
Well, I hardly ever talk about batting average, ERA, none of that. She's here because we realize that she can play for us. So I go the extreme opposite. I ask the character base, the leadership, the personality, all those questions. And we had a mom probably 3 years ago, halfway through, stop me and say, "You never asked me anything about her softball. This is weird. This is different." And it was the first mom that actually said that to me. And and I said, "We know she's good. I don't need to ask her anything softball wise, right?" We never promised any playing time, position, or batting order. Never, because we're going to get in trouble when we don't fulfill those promises. So, and I always say, whatever you get, you earn it. You don't deserve it, you earn it. So everybody's in the same boat as you are. And again, if you're a walk-on or a full ride, doesn't matter to me. If you're one of the best line hitters, you can be in the lineup, and, everything like that. So, we're trying to teach them what the real world is like. And you just said 67% of quarterbacks transfer, but also I think 44% of all men's basketball. That's the number it's up to.
Total players.
Regardless of position.
Wow.
So we're almost to the 50% mark of basketball. And, and, we had kids leave last year. So is it there's not a really a stigma attached to it anymore, you know. And I guess if you're not happy, go where you're going to be happy. So I don't know. It's a difficult time to be a coach for sure, and a young kid. You just go through a pandemic. You know, it's the most anxious generation of our lifetime of the world, and then you throw on top of that a life-changing event. So there is a lot of stuff going on in every person in America, really, let alone, you know, not just athletes, everybody. So it's a challenging time to be both a coach and an athlete, I think.